After 3 decades of silence, Sally Field has finally confessed the heartbreaking truth about her role in Forrest Gump. And it changes everything you thought you knew about this beloved classic. What if the performance that touched millions was actually born from pain, loss, and Hollywood's cruelest secret? Stick with me, because once you hear what really happened behind the cameras, you'll never watch Mrs. Gump the same way again. Was she celebrated or quietly erased? The truth is more shocking than you can imagine, and it's time the world finally heard it. The year was 1994. Forrest Gump was about to redefine American cinema. Tom Hanks was preparing the performance of his lifetime. Director Robert Zemeckis was chasing another masterpiece after his legendary success. With Back to the Future, the film had Oscar potential written all over it. On paper, it should have been a dream project for Sally Field. She was already Hollywood royalty. She had charmed the world with television hits like Gidget and The Flying Nun, then proved her dramatic brilliance with Norma Ray and Places in the Heart. She was not just a star, she was a 2-time Academy Award winner at the very peak of her craft. So why, when the Forrest Gump script landed on her desk, did Sally Field feel dread instead of excitement? Because deep down, she already knew what the role meant, and it terrified her. She wasn't being offered a love interest. She wasn't handed a complex lead role. Instead, she was asked to play the mother of Tom Hanks. Let that sink in. Tom Hanks, who in real life was 10 years younger than her. In what universe does it make sense for someone to play the mother of a man who could easily be her younger brother? But in Hollywood, this wasn't an oversight. It was a deliberate message. At just 47 years old, Sally Field was being shuffled into what the industry calls the mother category. Her days as a romantic lead were suddenly over. Meanwhile, men her age and even decades older were still being paired with actresses half their age as leading men. The double standard couldn't have been clearer. For Field, it felt like a knife to the heart. She knew the moment she accepted Mrs. Gump, she was stepping into what could be a career death sentence. And yet, the cruelest part was that she needed the job. Hollywood has a way of presenting offers that feel impossible to refuse. Forrest Gump had prestige written all over it. Working with director Robert Zemeckis and co-starring alongside Tom Hanks meant being part of a project destined for awards, acclaim, and cultural significance. So, even as her instincts screamed that this role symbolized the end of something, Sally Field forced a smile, said yes, and prepared to play one of cinema's most iconic mothers. But inside, she was quietly mourning. And yet, the irony is staggering. Mrs. Gump became the emotional anchor of Forrest Gump. She delivered some of the most quotable lines in film history. She shaped the heart of a movie that touched millions. But every single scene Sally Field filmed came with a cost. She was channeling her own heartbreak into her character, embodying unconditional maternal love. While privately grappling with the loss of her romantic leading lady persona, she had to be wise, loving, and strong on screen while feeling invisible and diminished in her real career. The filming process only deepened the emotional toll. Director Robert Zemeckis was known for being meticulous, demanding, and uncompromising. Field found herself in constant discussions with him over how to portray Mrs. Gump. Their visions did not always align. Sometimes the conversations were exhausting, but out of those clashes came some of her deepest, most powerful work. Then there was her dynamic with Tom Hanks. Their on-screen chemistry was undeniable and beautiful, but their acting methods could not have been more different. Hanks was instinctual, absorbing the atmosphere and letting charisma carry him. Field, on the other hand, worked through every detail, mapping out every emotional beat. That contrast left her feeling as though she was constantly trying to catch up, constantly pushing through the shadow of a co-star 10 years younger, who was still considered the prime of his career. And then came the famous scene, Sally Field delivering the line that would define the movie, "Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get." To audiences, it was a sweet, profound moment of wisdom. But for Field, those words carried a private irony, because at that very moment, she was living life's cruel unpredictability. She was being forced to accept a role she didn't want, a career shift she hadn't asked for, and an industry that told her she was too old to be seen as anything but a mother. The line became one of cinema's most quoted pieces of dialogue. And yet, behind it was an actress silently grieving. When Forrest Gump exploded into a cultural phenomenon, the world celebrated. Critics raved. Audiences adored it. Tom Hanks won the Academy Award for Best Actor. And Sally Field? She wasn't even nominated. Her performance was hailed as natural, almost expected, as though embodying maternal warmth required no skill, no craft, no artistry. As though she was simply being herself. It was devastating. Every compliment about Mrs. Gump felt like confirmation of her worst fear, that the industry now only saw her as a mother, not as a woman or a leading star. For decades, Sally Field stayed quiet. She smiled in interviews. She praised the film. She played along with the narrative that Forrest Gump had been an entirely positive experience. But inside, she was processing the cost. Years passed. She continued working, but the roles grew narrower, the stereotypes heavier. The mother, the wise woman, the supporting figure. The pattern was clear. It wasn't until she began writing her memoir that she finally confronted the truth, not just to herself, but to the world. When Sally Field finally broke her silence, it wasn't just about her personal pain. It was about exposing a systemic problem. She revealed how that casting decision symbolized everything wrong with Hollywood's treatment of aging women. She spoke about how the industry discards women the moment they're no longer seen as desirable, while men get to thrive for decades longer. Her story reframed Forrest Gump forever. Suddenly, Mrs. Gump wasn't just a loving mother. She was a vessel of the actress's real-life pain, her real-life fight against invisibility. The wisdom we all admired wasn't just written in the script. It was born from the heartbreak of an actress being told her time was up. But here is the remarkable part. Sally Field didn't let it break her. She transformed that pain into power. She became outspoken about ageism, sexism, and representation in Hollywood. She threw herself into activism, even getting arrested during climate protests. She used her platform to fight for LGBTQ rights. By learning to speak about her own mistreatment, she found the courage to speak about bigger injustices in the world. Today, when audiences revisit Forrest Gump, they see Mrs. Gump as wise, strong, and nurturing. But now, thanks to Sally Field's confession, we see something more. We see the strength of a woman who turned private heartbreak into art. We see the cost of systemic bias written into the casting decisions of one of the greatest films ever made. And we see the resilience of an actress who refused to let Hollywood's cruelty define her worth. Because in the end, Sally Field's most powerful performance wasn't in front of a camera. It was in her willingness to speak the truth even after 30 years of silence. So the next time you watch Forrest Gump and hear Mrs. Gump's famous words, remember the real story of Sally Field, a story of resilience, truth, and the hidden cost of Hollywood fame. What do you think? Was she wronged or simply caught in the system? Share your thoughts below. And if this story opened your eyes, make sure to like the video, share it with friends, and subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories, because every performance hides a deeper truth. Thanks for watching.